If you are looking for hair transplant and you want to know the cost of hair transplant at our center, that is Saraswat Hospital, then this video is for you. The cost in the market can vary from 10 rupees per graft and goes up to 300 or 350 rupees per graft. But what's the price or the right price of hair transplant at our center? In this video, we will break down the cost as per the technique and as per the area in which we are doing the hair transplant, and these are the factors on which the cost depends. So let's move into this video and see the cost for the different areas. I am Dr. Satya Saraswat, a gold medalist plastic and cosmetic surgeon and a diplomat of American Board of Hair Restoration Surgery. I have been doing hair transplants for more than 17 years now and have treated more than thousands of patients of hair loss and hair transplant. Do subscribe to our channel to get more information about the hair loss and hair transplant. So first of all, coming to the most important and most common hair transplant which is performed most regularly, which is the front hair loss treatment for the males as well as female. Before this procedure, we do a customized planning for each and every person or an individual, and we do a trichoscopic assessment of the donor side as well as the recipient side, and we see the quality of the roots or the hairs in the donor side, various zones of the donor side, occipital, left side, right side, upper, lower zones, and we see the density also. So based on this, we are able to see the quality of the roots. We also check out the average number of hairs per graft or per follicular unit, and this gives us a coverage value in the donor side and in the recipient side also. This gives us an information about the total number of grafts which are available in the donor area and how much we can easily extract by each FUE and FUT technique. And then we do the calculations of the recipient area, where we calculate the total area in square centimeters and then we multiply it by the desired density, whether we want to perform a moderate density or a high density depending on the age, grade of the baldness and the total number of grafts which are available. Also, please note, at our center there is a complete involvement of the doctor during the procedure. So there are various steps, as you all know: the planning, the hairline designing, local anesthesia, slit making, graft extraction and graft insertion. So except for the graft insertion part, which is as per the international protocols performed by the technical staff under the supervision of the doctor, rest all the steps are performed by the doctors themselves. Even the insertion part, there is a close observation of the graft and the way the grafts are inserted by the doctors, who are routinely checking the quality of the procedure at each and every step. The insertion is done by two methods: forceps method and the implanter method. The slit making is done by two methods: CTS blades and the sapphire blades. So depending on the techniques which you choose and which is explained to you in detail before you plan your procedure, our charges are 50 rupees per graft. For the basic procedure, we are using the forceps, and 60 rupees we are using the sapphire blades, and 70 rupees where the slits are made by the sapphire blade and the insertion is done by the implanter pens. Government tax GST 18% is separate, as is taxed in our country, India. Now coming to the female hair loss and female hair transplant, please note that female hair transplant is technically much more challenging than the male hair transplant, as we cannot trim the hairs completely and we have to do the transplant in between the existing hairs. So this is technically much more difficult to perform, and it costs 80 rupees plus 18% GST at our center. Please note that these charges do not include the repair hair transplant, where you want to get an improvement upon the previously operated hair transplant elsewhere. Do like this video if you are liking the content till now. Now coming to the charges for crown hair transplant, you have to understand that the crown is very challenging. The case selection is equally important on the part of the doctor, whether we should be performing a hair transplant for you if you have a crown hair loss or not. This area has a very different and a peculiar anatomy in terms of angle and direction at which the hairs are coming out. They generally come out in a whirl pattern, and the slits which are made in the crown have to mimic the normal angle and direction of the whirl. So the slit making and the graft insertion is technically much more challenging, as it is mostly done in the prone position, which means the face downward. So crown hair transplant needs a separate consideration in terms of cost, in terms of the expertise needed to perform the crown hair transplant and to plan it out and execute it in a perfect way. The crown hair transplant generally costs at our center 70 rupees and 18% GST over that, so which almost comes to around 85 rupees per graft. If you are planning a hair transplant for yourself, you can mention about your problem, or if you want to consult with us, you can mention in the comment section below. And one more thing, if you are from outside India and planning a quality hair transplant by an American board certified hair transplant surgeon and are looking out for hair transplant in India, then our charges are almost $1 per graft for you. Now coming to the special area transplant like beard, eyebrows, axilla or small scars on the mustache. Beard is technically very difficult as there is no supporting bony structure below the cheek. So it's very difficult to actually insert the graft in this moving skin. Also, there are higher chances of cobblestoning happening in beard, and beard has an anatomy where you have to place the softer grafts on the border and thicker 2 or 3 hair grafts on the body part. Generally, if there is thinning of the beard and your donor beard is good, then beard itself acts as the donor site in the shadow area, and then after harvesting from here they are inserted here. Or if you have complete atrichia, which means there are no growth of the mustache and beard, and you want to fulfill it or you want to grow beard, then we have to take the grafts from the scalp itself. In either case, it is technically much more challenging for the team to perform a hair transplant for the beard. The beard hair transplant costs 70 rupees plus GST at our center, which comes to almost $1 per graft. The eyebrow hair transplants generally cost around 100,000 Indian rupees because it again is a technically much more difficult procedure, and we have to insert the graft as the direction changes. Accordingly, we have to do the hair transplant. The cost of eyebrow transplant comes to approximately 12 to 1500 USD. And for a smaller area transplant like a scar on the mustache, our prices start from 50,000 Indian rupees plus GST, which comes to almost 7 to 800 US dollars. If you want to know more about hair transplant and are looking for hair loss treatment with us, do call us on the numbers given here. Now let us talk about the repair hair transplant, which is an emerging field nowadays because a lot of clinics are coming out, and accordingly, with the increase in the number of procedures being performed, there are more and more patients coming out for the correction of previously operated hair transplant. This field is known as repair hair transplant, and we do get a lot of patients who have been operated previously. Repair hair transplant needs a meticulous planning in terms of assessment of the donor site, as it may have been harvested multiple times and the donor site may be scarce or thin, and we have to again do a trichoscopy to see how many grafts we can harvest by FUE or FUT, or we need to take sometimes from the beard and other body areas as well. So this being very technically difficult, sometimes we have to extract the grafts also which have been implanted at wrong angles and direction. This repair hair transplant, if performed with the basic procedure as mentioned previously, it costs 100 rupees plus GST, and by the advanced technique, that is the implanter pen method, it costs 120 rupees plus GST at our center. So this comes to almost 1.25 to $1.5 per graft. If you want to know the difference between a cheap and an expensive hair transplant, then you can click at the video in the link given above. Now coming to a special subset of patients who are our Afro-American patients, they have a different anatomy in terms of the hair roots. The hair roots are curved inside the scalp skin, and so it needs a special maneuver and special kind of punches to extract that graft. Also, they have a higher splay, which means the grafts are spread apart inside the skin. This again needs special equipments to do the hair transplant. They have a lower hairline density and have a very high chances of keloid formation. So all those factors have to be kept in mind, and the donor site has to be assessed properly, and we have to perform the procedure in a way that the chances of keloid formation are less, the scarring is less, the transaction is less, and at the same time we can get good quality results. The Afro-American hair transplant costs 150 rupees plus GST at our center, which comes roughly $2 per graft. Another small minority of patients who want to undergo a hair transplant are transgenders who want to undergo a female to male hair transplant and they want to grow their beard. In these patients, again, it is quite difficult to do the procedure. This also costs 150 rupees plus GST at our center, again coming to around $2 per graft. A special technique for some patients who do not want to shave their entire head and have to attend some office meetings, or their job precludes shaving the complete head. In those patients, we do a non-shaven hair transplant, which means the donor site is not completely shaved. We just do a trimming in between, and there are various ways of doing that trimming in between the remaining hairs in the donor site. It can be a step trimming, it can be a random trimming, and extraction is very difficult in those cases. It needs special punches and special modes in your machine by which you can do it. The insertion also is difficult. This non-shaven hair transplant at our center costs 80 rupees plus GST, which comes to almost 100 rupees or $1.25 per graft. If you want to see a patient, Mr. Pet from US, who is Afro-American, as well as a female to male transgender hair transplant, you can click on the link given above in this video.